Going to come up here and they're going to do a presentation for us right now.
Good.
We've all been victims.
Isaac Majaya, 2018.
Brenda Mary, 2019.
Josue Hernandez.
Zion Bird, 2018.
William Hammerhands, 2018. Ezekiel Davis, 2018.
Rosali Mahia, 2018.
Alexander Jackson, 2018. Mikael Ricks, 2018.
London Dixon, 2018.
Trip Johnson, 2019.
Good morning, State's Attorney Braveboy. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, my young brothers and sisters. And good morning, Prince George's County. It is an honor to be speaking to you today. My name is Sade Brooks, and I'm a member of CPAC. Every year, there's roughly 1.3 million people who die in car crashes. Those accidents leave approximately 20 to 50 million people injured or disabled. One of the leading causes of these accidents are due to people driving under the influence or texting and driving. Car accidents is one of the leading causes of death among teens in America. As teens, we get distracted easily by our cell phones. Texting and driving causes about 1.6 million car crashes each year. Texting and driving is more likely to cause an accident over someone who is driving under the influence. Responding to a text while driving causes you to fail to give your full attention to your surroundings for a few seconds. A lot can happen in a few seconds. As stated by a AAA teen driver poll, 94% of teen drivers are well aware of the dangers of texting and driving, but 35% say they still text and drive anyway. While driving with a passenger can double the risk of an accident, while having 2 or more passengers, you're 5 times more likely to get into an accident. Teen drivers are more likely to get into car accidents or nearly get into car accidents than adults. 1/4 of catastrophic teen accidents were caused by adolescents drinking and driving. 14% of high school seniors documented driving while being under the influence of alcohol. In conclusion, with prom season right around the corner, and a lot of us are going to pull up in fancy cars, and the greater majority of us are going to go out and do irresponsible things like try and race the cars or try and drive to the next party tipsy or high. But we need to take more action in keeping ourselves and our loved ones safe on the road. If you see a friend trying to leave the party and they're under the influence of alcohol and drugs, take their keys away. Call them a Lyft or an Uber so they can get home safely. The $10 or $20 you spend to save a life will pay off in the end. Thank you.
One more time, a round of applause for those young people. All right, give it up for both Denises. I have Denise Roberts over here and Denise Douglas. They're the ones that had me come out today. Give them a round of applause. Thank you so much, ladies. And I'm going to pass the mic to Ms. Denise Douglas.
That's right. Thank you so much for coming out. It's a pleasure seeing all of your wonderful faces. We've spent months planning this, and our state's attorney is just wonderful. She's 100% behind this event. She's the reason, and she needs really no introduction. And so, why don't we go ahead and stand to our feet?
Yes.
And give her a round of applause for clearly recognizing the importance of this issue and pulling us all together today. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her, Aisha and Frank.
All right, thank you all for being here this morning. We really appreciate you. And first of all, thank you so much for the honor of serving you as your state's attorney. But I also, when I was on the campaign trail, I said that, you know, law enforcement and public safety is not just the responsibility of elected or appointed individuals. it's really all of our responsibility, and we cannot do this without you. So the community is so important to me and to the work that I do, to the work that our chief does, who you'll hear from very shortly, that when we see an issue, we're going to bring it straight to you because we're going to ask for your assistance. And over the past 7 months, we have seen over 40 fatal crashes in Prince George's County with over lives, including very young people. And so my office is responsible for prosecuting at-fault drivers. And I meet with the families of victims before we charge. I meet with them during our prosecution of the at-fault drivers. And then post-trial, we also have follow-up meetings with families. And so we do our best, and we do get justice for these families as best we can, because the real justice would be for them to have their loved one. And so today, we're sending a message along with all of my law enforcement partners that yes, we will hold at-fault drivers accountable, but what we really want to do is save lives. And that's why we're asking drivers to drive focused, sober, and safe. A third of our crashes are a result of impaired driving. Those are absolutely avoidable crashes and fatalities. And we need you to partner with us to get that message out to the larger community. So I'm not going to bore you with speeches because there's a bunch of important people who you'll meet this morning. We'll have a panel of experts. But I really want to thank my entire staff from the State's Attorney's Office. So staff, if you can just stand up and wave. Thank you so much, Team SAO. This is the best team around. You all have the best prosecutors, I believe, in the entire country. And also, I want to thank in particular Denise Roberts, who spearheaded this campaign. You're amazing. And also her partner in crime, Denise Douglas, who is also on our communications team. So we really, again, thank all of you. And I want to also give a shout out to my sorors of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, but I also see the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha, the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta, and also Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, as well as all of our Greek men who are here. I want to thank you because it is through you and with you that we will get this message out to the larger community. So thank you all so much for being here, and enjoy the program that we have for you this morning.
Drive focused, sober, and safe campaign. Give it up for the state's attorney, ladies and gentlemen. Now, she mentioned the prosecutors just a minute ago, and I want to make it a point to bring to light that the state's attorney and the prosecutors are not just out to get people. A lot of people think of them in a negative manner because you have to go to court because they represent the people if you did something wrong. However, as you can tell, this is a prime example of the things that they actually do to try to prevent people from having to go to court. I work with the Office of Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney General in D.C. It's my first time working with you, and I hope to continue this relationship, okay? Now, I want to acknowledge our state and county police department in here. Give it up for our state and the Prince George's County Police Department here. And Park Police. Where's Park? Okay, I see Park over there. All right, give it up for them. Give it up for them, all right? Now, we have a proclamation on the way. Give it up right now. Coming from the governor's office, Governor Hogan's office. Give a round of applause for Mr. Kevin Kraft, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, Kev. How you doing, bro?
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Governor Hogan, thank you very much for the invitation to join you for this most important occasion and campaign. I realize now that there was a focus on the youth, but this is something that is important for everyone, and this is something that's not going to end once the prom season's over. This is something that has to be focused on every day going forward for as long as we're here. So what I'm going to do right now is just read the citation. It says, the state of Maryland, Governor of the state of Maryland, to drive focused, sober, and safe campaign. Greetings. Be it known that on behalf of the citizens of this state, in recognition of the importance of a heightened sense of awareness, that the best safety equipment is still a focused and sober driver. As more people continuously look to share in the prosperity we enjoy here in Maryland, and in particular Prince George's County, the number of vehicles on the road will only increase, and so must our vigilance. As we seek to further engage all current and future drivers, it is on behalf of the citizens of Maryland, we are pleased to confer upon you this governor's citation, given under my hand and the Great Seal of the state of Maryland, this 27th day of April, 2019, signed by Governor Lawrence J. Hogan, Lieutenant Governor Boyd K. Rutherford, and Secretary of State John C. Wobensmith.
All right, we will have remarks. Please start clapping your hands right now and give a round of applause for Council Chair Todd Turner and PG County Police Department Chief Stawinski.
So I got my running shoes on this morning. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? On behalf of my colleagues at the Prince George's County Council, I want to say good morning. And I also want to thank, obviously, our state's attorney, Aisha Braveboy, for the invitation to join you this morning on the Drive, Focus, Sober, and Safe campaign kickoff event. You know, anything this council can do to make the lives of our residents and bring attention to safety is a worthwhile endeavor. It's exciting to be with you today because it is a very important issue to the lives and are here in Prince George's County. There are far too many collisions and fatal accidents on the road, as the state's attorney indicated. And whether it's here in Oxon Hill, or in Bowie, or in Clinton or Brandywine, a family traveling to a church service, a car full of children, a mother on her way to work. One life lost is too many, and we have lost too many this year. So I always follow the 3 E's. Have you ever heard that? The 3E rule for driving safety. Education, and that's why we're here today, to educate our residents about driving safe, sober, and focused. About engineering. You know, how many of us now have Bluetooth in our cars so we don't have to talk on our phones as we're driving? Not too shortly now, we're going to have cars that drive themselves. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing, but that's technology and engineering making us hopefully safer drivers. And then finally, enforcement. Obviously, you see around today with our state's attorney, our representatives from our public safety agencies, if you do something wrong, we're going to enforce it against you. And that will stick with you for the rest of your life. And if you, because of your actions or inactions, take the life of another person, you will have to live with that for the rest of your life. And that family that you've impacted will also have to live with that because they have lost a loved one. So all of us must look at each other and get involved to make sure our highways, our roads, our neighborhoods are safe and they are safely traveled. We cannot control other drivers as much as we want. I have a 16-year-old who has her driver's permit, and as much as I try to educate, I can't control what she does as much as I would like to as part of that, but I can give her my benefit of the experience I've had in order to make her a better driver. And so your actions are important every single day, and particularly for our young folks. Your habits that you're developing now as drivers are going to stick with you for the rest of your life. So make them good habits, just as your study habits are or anything else. So on behalf of the Prince George's County Council, I want to thank again the state's attorney for hosting this event, for all the vendors who are here, and those who will be part of today's program. And I would say, obviously, we want to leave with the message of driving focused, sober, and safe. So thank you and have a great day today.
Good morning. It is a genuine privilege to be here. And I want to begin by thanking you for being here. It's a nice day outside. It really is. And yet you've committed to being here and having a conversation about a very important issue in our community. Now, those of you who don't know me, I'm Hank, and I'm not from someplace else. I'm born and raised in this town. But this issue has impacted my family. Every Easter, we go back to Tennessee, where my mom's from, and we visit. And there's a cemetery out in the country where an uncle who I never met, his wife, who I never met, and their child are buried. And we always leave flowers there. They're killed back in the 1950s. And the driver who struck them was intoxicated. Now, I tell this story because it points to the fact that we're making progress in this nation on this issue. Because in the 1950s, it wasn't that's an intoxicated driver and there's got to be some sort of punishment. It was an excuse. He's drunk. It's a terrible tragedy. Tragically, my uncle didn't pass immediately. Suffered. And my grandfather, who passed away in the late 1970s, told me those stories when I was just a young man. That's why when I became a police officer, one of the things that I always signed up for was DWI enforcement. I went out there and I made those arrests. And what I want to focus on with you very briefly, because we have a long and very good program, is the focused and safe piece. Right? I see our partners. I see the Maryland State Police. I see my fire department. I see officers from my department and other departments. And I know there's other folks represented here. I know the chief of the liquor board is here. And I want to appreciate him being here because it's an issue that spans all of those enforcement bodies. But let me say this. We talked about prom season. Prom season, a thing that comes and goes, right? We don't have proms in December. We have the holidays in December. Here's what I worry about. We in law enforcement, we've been successful in this county, we've been successful in other places by looking at when things are most likely to happen and putting resources there. So around the holiday season, around graduation season, prom season, we could anticipate more people maybe being intoxicated on the road. Does that make sense? Here's the problem that we're facing. Smartphones. What's the season for the smartphone?
24/7, 365.
What's the time for the smartphone, ladies and gentlemen?
All day, every day.
Is it in the evening, on the weekend? It's 24/7. And I purposely got this mic from the gentleman who's doing a tremendous job hosting, and I want to appreciate that, because I want you to see where I'm standing, and I want you to look where our state's attorney is. My friend Walter Kirkland's down there. Wave at me, Walter. Denise was there a second ago. All right. At highway speeds, you look down to your smartphone for 1 second, and you travel from where I am to where they are.
Yep, good example. 75 feet.
Now, are we all traveling at highway speeds? Is everybody driving 55?
Not on the belt.
So it makes it worse, doesn't it? Now let's take this off of a highway. Let's put this onto one of our roads in community in Prince George's County, where our state's attorney and Walter and Denise, maybe they're trying to get across the street. Maybe they're standing on the sidewalk, right? If I haven't seen where I'm going for that second while I'm traveling from here to there, maybe I'm on the sidewalk. And the message I want to bring home to you is that it can happen to you. Because there's another dynamic, there's a little bit more psychology associated with this. Because people, by and large, when they're having a couple drinks and they're going to get in the car, they worry about whether or not they're going to get stopped.
Right.
Because I've had a couple drinks and I'm driving. Hopefully that stops them. The other thing that I worry about is the fact that we don't think that working on this phone is a problem. Because we're doing it all the time. And so when we're doing it in the car, we're not distinguishing the way that people who might have a different thought as they're getting into a car after having a couple of drinks are thinking of it. Does that make sense? And so there's no season for the smartphone. And the velocities that we travel and the vehicles we drive mean that these collisions are getting worse nationally. And the Wall Street Journal published a piece about 3 weeks ago that I have on my desk to remind me constantly that pedestrian fatalities in the United States are on the increase, and it's directly attributable to the fact that people are walking into traffic. And we've seen that right here in Prince George's County. But I also have a hopeful message. And just so the record is clear, in 2014, we actually had more fatal collisions in Prince George's County than we had homicides. I'm not from someplace else, and you all know that that's a remarkable thing for me to be able to say. And those numbers continue to trend downward. So we went from 69 down to 49 last year. We're making progress because of troopers and officers and fire and EMS personnel. But let me say this, those fire and EMS personnel, they will save your life, but the recovery, the physical therapy, the injury, the time off work, you're not gonna run the way you used to run. Those kind of things matter to folks. We're making progress on this. But again, I'm gonna leave it the way I started it. Thank you, thank the young people, because quite frankly, you're the ones I worry about the most. My little girl's 10. So please, please. You're here and you're engaged, and that means that you're leaders, and other young people are gonna listen to you. And you've grown up with these things in the way that I haven't. To be honest with you, when I was a kid, the phone was a thing that was wired to the wall. And if you called somebody and they didn't answer, you hung up and you called them again some other time. We didn't have answering machines, we didn't have pagers, we didn't have any of that stuff. Honest to God, you've grown up with it. And you're more likely not to see that as an issue than some folks a little bit more mature like myself, Rob and Terrence. So thank you for being here. And thank you, Madam State's Attorney, for this tremendously good initiative. It's a privilege to be a part of it. Thank you for helping to bring it together and host it. Denise, superstar. And with that, I'm going to conclude, but I'm going to again, it means a lot. Thank you for being here and being part of this message.
All right, want to recognize the fire department and the EMS that's also in the rear. Give them a round of applause. Also want to recognize from Chris Van Hollen's office, the United States Senator of Maryland. Give it up for Eve T. Schuman, Esquire. Hey, hi Eve.
Yeah, I made a mistake. Before I realized that it was too late, I was swerving in and out between two lanes, but I didn't expect anybody's family to be in any true pain. I could have put the bottle down. I was in a daze, so I'm kicking it into full throttle now, but now somebody's mom is feeling trauma because her baby can't be coddled now, so she can't get her baby back. I didn't think I hit the bottle that hard. It was like baby taps, but now I got a murder attachment. A few little sips turned everything around me into a travesty, so do everybody a favor and stay sober on the pavement to prevent another tragedy. Because the last thing we need is more casualties. So drive safe, because it's not just your life, it's everybody's life that's at stake.
I'm Aisha Braveboy, State's Attorney for Prince George's County. One life is too many to be lost to unsafe driving. So join us in our campaign, Drive Focused, Sober, and Safe.
Doing a lot of stuff, y'all. How y'all doing? Y'all good?
Yeah, we good.
I'm not even going to use the mic because y'all can hear me, right? No. All right, this gentleman right here, give it up for Mr. Emmanuel Barnes.
Good morning.
Good.
Push it up.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Allow me to put you all in the perspective of an intoxicated driver. I made a mistake. And before I realized that it was too late, I was swerving in and out between two lanes, but I didn't think anyone's family would experience any true pain when I could have just put that bottle down. I was in a daze and kicking it into full throttle now, and now somebody's mom is feeling trauma because their baby can no longer be coddled now, and she can't get her baby back. I didn't think I hit the bottle that hard. It felt like just baby taps, but now there's a murder attached. A few little sips turned everything around me into a travesty, so do everyone a favor and stay sober on the pavement to prevent another tragedy. Because the last thing we need is another casualty. So drive safe, because it's not just your life, it's everybody's life that's at stake. Thank you.
Give it up for Emmanuel, y'all. And keep it going, because we're gonna have Miss Wheelchair Marilyn come up here. Hi, Miss Wheelchair Marilyn. She's gonna come up to the front. She's gonna talk to us real quick. Her name is Miss Wanda Hawkins Barber.
First, let's give it a moment of silence for those that did not make it. Again, my name is Wanda Hawkins Barber. I am a victim and survivor of a car accident in 2004. The driver ran me off the road, kept going, never found him. In a result, I am a T4 spinal cord injury, left me paraplegic at the age of 40. Coming home from work. When I woke up and found out everything, I was like, but I was coming home from work. How did I get here? It just takes a second. Just a second. To take someone's life or injure someone's life. The impact that it gave me was devastating, because I, for one, enjoy walking, dancing, going places that this wheelchair cannot go. Now you have the phones, because at that time, I think we just had just regular phones. Texting wasn't even heard of then, in 2004. Now you got the texting. I see it so much when I'm riding Metro Access, and sometimes I'm riding and I'm counting. Let me see how many people that I'm gonna ride past that's behind the wheel are texting. And I'm on 95. I get up to 100 and I say, this is ridiculous, this is crazy, this is insane. And you're doing 65 miles an hour on a highway. with the phone in your hand, one hand on the wheel, the other one with a phone, and you doing this, trying to drive. This is insane. Who does that? You know, so when I was asked to come out and speak on focus, sober, safe, I couldn't wait to get here because I have lost friends behind car accidents. I made it, but the impact is still real. Because of the texting, now you have the legalization of marijuana. A joke. Because they feel that they can take and smoke just one and get behind the wheel. The impairment that it does, it takes someone's life or impairs someone's life. The drinking. Oh, I walked to the car and I was able to go to the next bar and I drove. Now it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm driving home. And I'm trying to keep one eye open. Just takes that one blink that could possibly make you fall asleep behind the wheel. And there's someone's life impacted or gone. Again, the prom season. Not that they may be doing that, but they could be just easily coming from the prom, and there's somebody else drinking and driving, and someone's child doesn't make it home. The impact. So I'm glad to be able to come out and speak on this, because the impact caused me to be in a nursing home for 3.5 years. Not just for rehab. It changed my whole life. All because of that person behind the wheel, drunk, and never was found. So, drive safe, drive sober, and drive focused. I can't, and since this, I am Miss Wheelchair Maryland, 2019. I am now trying to get to the nationals to become Miss Wheelchair Maryland, Miss Wheelchair America, I'm sorry, Miss Wheelchair America. So I'm asking each of you to go on my Facebook page, go on Miss Wheelchair Maryland. You can donate Miss Wheelchair Maryland 2019. And I have a Cash App, the $, My Money Mom. Any donations would be appreciated. Thank you.
Wow.
Amazing. Amazing to see you here today, too. Thank you for coming out and speak with us. We really, really appreciate that. You know, I was just reviewing the campaign and how it's set. And it says, drive focused, sober, and safe. And I had to think for a second. I said to myself, Flav, did you ever do anything that wasn't right? And I remembered, I was 19 years old. I was out partying, having a great time. Howard Homecoming. HU? I knew a couple of y'all knew what to do. In this particular year, Howard and Bowie had their homecoming at the exact same time. I'm in DC. We went partying. I'm gonna date myself right now. Biggie was still alive. We were partying at everywhere. The entire city was in gridlock. You couldn't even drive down Florida Avenue or New York Avenue unless you knew how to get around. If you wasn't from DC, you was just gonna be sitting there for about 2-3 hours trying to get to where you was going. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday morning, I'm in the radio station. 7, 8 o'clock. I hadn't really been asleep that entire weekend. I would say maybe 6 hours. From Thursday to Sunday, maybe 6 hours. I'm driving, one of my supervisors coming to the station. Mind you, I'm 19 years old. He says, yo, bro, I need you to help me get the truck out the back of the yard, out my yard. I said, why is it stuck in the yard? I said, man, it's raining and it got stuck in the yard. I can't get it out. I'm like, okay, I'll come help you. He says, but I need you to drive. I said, bro, I just got here, man. I'm sitting in the chair trying to catch a nap. Urban Street is a one-way street. Driving down the street in one of the station vehicles, I'm nodding. I catch myself nodding. I'm thinking, okay. It's the first time I told this story, really. So I'm driving down the street. And he says, when he tells the story, he says he was once looking out the front window. But then all of a sudden, everything he saw was coming out of the side window. That means that the van did this, went to the left, because I went to sleep. And I sideswiped 3 vehicles. Nobody got hurt. They were all parked. Thank God no one got hurt. And I stopped right in front of a fire hydrant. Barely hitting it, probably about this far away from it. My point in bringing that story up to you is because it's about being focused. The first thing it says up there is focused. Not about drunk driving, not about being inebriated or high on marijuana or any kind of drug. It's about being focused. How many people see somebody reach in the back and grab the car seat because their child is in the back doing something? And they just like, can you just be quiet? Can you just be quiet? And they're doing this. I caught myself doing that one day with my 3-year-old. I was like, what am I doing? It's about being focused, ladies and gentlemen. So let's make sure we do that, okay? Now, coming to the front, we have one more speaker. Her name is Miss Latasha Ward. She's a victim. She was impacted by someone. It will, yes, in a moment. Hey guys, can you just keep all the mics hot so we don't have to keep it.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. My name is Latasha Ward. I just want to thank all of you all for coming out. And I want to thank our state's attorney for having the vision to put on an event such as this. What I would like to share with you all this morning deals with 2 of the worst phone calls that I ever received. These type of calls you never want to receive yourself. My first call came at about 10 p.m. on Labor Day in 2012. The second call was on Martin Luther King's holiday at 6:45 a.m. One was from a total stranger. So let's say if a total stranger is calling your phone at 10 p.m. at night, how many people in this room will answer? Okay, well, most of you all didn't raise your hand, so you like me. I didn't answer the phone. The person if somebody's calling your phone repeatedly, eventually you're gonna get annoyed because it's after 10 and you don't even know who they are. And when I finally answered the call went like this. Hey, are you Tasha? And I was like, yes. Tasha is an endearment because my name is LaTasha. So if somebody called me Tasha, that means that somebody knows me. So the person said, hey, I'm with your mother. Your mother's been in a real bad accident on Route 210. What she told me is, hey, don't come over to the scene. I'm gonna stay with your mother until EMT gets here. I was in total shock because my mother and I, we just had dinner with a loved one, celebrating their birthday. So I was almost in disbelief. So with the normal thing what you'll do, you'll call your mother. So I called my mother and the phone went straight to voicemail. My heart, basically just dropped at that particular point. But I did go straight over to the hospital. The second call came from my goddaughter. Now, at 6:45, think about on a holiday, you're sleeping, you don't have to go to work. So it took her about 3 times to actually wake me up, from her calling. And when somebody called you and you immediately hear crying, hey, would that wake you all up in the morning? So it woke me up, and what I heard was, hey, Tasha, my father did not come home. I believe something happened. So what did I do again? I said, well, hey, I said, hey, let me call your father, because Brad called, he actually was a liquor inspector. So if you are familiar with Fast Eddie's on Allentown Road, he was there working that night. So I was like, hey, your father was working, whatever, still trying to process her saying that he didn't make it home. So I called his phone and it went straight to voicemail too. I called her back and I said, why do you believe something has happened to your father? What she had witnessed, they had a tenant there. You kind of eavesdrop, somebody banging on your door to give your family some information. She saw 2 police officers walk away. So immediately, at that particular point, her father was hit head on by a drunk driver on Walker Mill Road. So these are 2 holidays. The 2 people was in, basically a bad accident. The first one, my mother's still here today. Thank God the fire station 45, they had the jaws of life to get my mother out of the car. After a drunk driver that was riding, a drunk driver was actually riding on a suspended driver's license. But we had EMT, all fire stations, and we had fire station people in here. They don't have the jaws of life. So we had to push to make sure that all of them had the jaws of life, because if they didn't have the jaws of life, they wouldn't have been able to cut my mother out of that vehicle. Also, we have one of the best surgeons. My mother's back had to be reconstructed. When I went inside of the room and they showed us a picture of her back was all splattered. So my mother had a reconstructed back with 2 rods and 12 canonite screws that is fully functional today, because we have one of the best trauma centers in the state of Maryland, which is at Prince George's County Hospital. The second one, Board of Witness. And I want to thank Aisha for hearing me, because I've been crying since 2016, because although we involved with our community and we live in our community, we wasn't aware that if somebody was driving and they was at 0.22 alcohol level, that means that person's body was alcohol. And they actually hit somebody, killed somebody instantly. The person did not flee the scene. The police officer or the corporate person on the scene could not arrest that person. If he would have given that gentleman a ticket that day, they wouldn't have been able to bring him back to court to trial him on something he already paid for. So we have a law in the state of Maryland called double jeopardy that we have to basically, get rid of, so that people can actually, get the consequences that they deserve. They shouldn't be allowed to walk around for free. So on January 18, 2016, that's when Grant Cole got killed. It took almost 2 years to basically bring his case to trial. And I often A lot of us probably are not really familiar with the organization MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, but we had the opportunity to basically, be a part of some of their ceremonies, and most people would get up there and say no justice for their loved one. The person who actually killed Greg Hall got 10 years with 8 years being suspended, but each day that person does good in jail, he gets a day of freedom back. So basically for your loved one, right now, a person will only probably serve about 1 year. So what I'm asking you all today, the message up there, don't drive not being focused. So we talking about with the cell phones. I'm guilty sometimes with that too. So it's not just the millennials. Us ladies who like to put makeup on while you're driving, put it on while you're at home. Also, I'm guilty of eating in the car. You're not focused if you're eating in the car. And also, drive sober. You don't want to be the person that calls the next family to receive that unwanted call or that knock at the door. You all have a great day.
All right, now we're going to have a student poem by Taylor Dickinson.
Hello, everybody. This is Collateral Damage. Life is precious. It's like a glass cup. Sturdy, but can all come crashing down in one slip up. And it'll all happen way too fast. But by the time you realize what's happening, your time to save yourself will have passed. In your last few moments of life, you sit back and you reflect. Because never in your life would you have guessed that this is what would happen next. Your life flashes before your eyes, and then you realize the truth is inevitable, and you're about to face your demise. And the saddest part of all this is that you're not the only one that will have to say goodbye. Because you got distracted and looked away, now everyone has to pay. Your legacy will be hurt and heartbreak, because the last thing that you did in your life was take. The last thing that you did in your life was kill yourself and others, and it was against their own will. All because you got distracted, which in turn affected the way that you reacted. So look up, pay attention, and stay focused, because the collateral you can cause behind the wheel of a car is far from worth it. Thank you.
All right, now we're going to have remarks from someone who actually caused the crash. I want to bring up right now Devin Smith. Give him a round of applause. Give this gentleman a round of applause. Here's the reason why I'm really saying we should do that, because he's coming up here to talk about what he's actually done. How many people have actually, stepped up? We normally hear from the victims, but how often do we hear from someone that's actually had an incident?
Good afternoon. Thank you all for having me here. And I too think this is a very important issue. It's one of the first times I've really spoken about my situation, and I'm happy to do so. So, if you would, I'm just going to take you all back to 2011. I was a rising senior in college at NC State University down in Raleigh, North Carolina. It was my last summer as a college student, so I was preparing to be a senior. At that time, I was working full time and taking time to focus on what my life was going to be after college, which was approaching in a year. And so, as I was working really hard, I hadn't really spent time, to hang out with friends or anything like that. And one day, I decided, school was about a week or two away from starting up. And my best friend from high school went to UNC Chapel Hill. And if anyone's familiar with the area, they're about 25, 30 minutes down the road. And so I decided, I'll go to Chapel Hill and we'll hang out. And it was a typical night for us, Chapel Hill is like a college town, so there's bars everywhere. We hit a few bars and had a few drinks, a few laughs. It was a good time. And I remember very distinctly when the night was ending, having to make a decision if I would spend the night in Chapel Hill with Chad and wake up early to get to work on time the next morning, or if I just, just push through it and make it to go home. And I thought to myself, if I stay here, I'll have to wake up super early and get home super early to take a shower and everything. And honestly, I had driven under the influence before. And so I was like, I'll just make it, And I remember driving on the highway, and the way I remember it, it was as if I went from driving to instantly being pulled out of the car. And I was disoriented at the time, but I remember, being pulled out and placed in the back of an ambulance. And I still hadn't registered that I was in an accident to me at the time. And I remember I could see my car, and it was crumpled up, and I saw the EMS crew, first responders, I saw the police officers. I saw another vehicle, which was off the median in a tree, and I didn't see the other people. And so I kept asking, where are the other people? But, they were shining lights in my face and tending to my wounds and bruises. And no one really, I don't think they were listening, or maybe I wasn't speaking up. And so I then went to do the field sobriety test. And, again, I was asking, well, where are the other people? Because at that point, I still didn't see any other people. And so once it was all, done, the officer said to me that the other passenger, or the driver of the other vehicle, was alive, but it wasn't looking too good, right? And so I remember being in the backseat of the police car the first time in my life. And, I just kept repeating to myself on the way to the station, God, please don't let me be a murderer. I just kept repeating that. And he did not pass that night, but it was about a week later that I received a phone call about his passing. And it was difficult. I got the call actually from the insurance company. And it was really interesting because she mentioned it very casually and began talking about how, that would affect my rates and I was being dropped from my plan and all that good stuff. And at the time, I couldn't even focus because she was trying to explain all that and I was just trying to catch my breath. Because I knew in that moment, everything in my life was going to be different. Everything I had been spending that year planning for was null and void. And so I share my story, not to glamorize the situation, not to, glorify it by any means, but of all the consequences that have come with the decision that I made, whether that was becoming a felon. It's a felony in North Carolina. I served 2 years in state prison, working it down from 4 years. I wasn't able to finish school. I had to reapply several times. There were a number of consequences, right? But the one that was the most impactful, and the one that I deal with the most to this day, is having to live with the fact that there are 2 young children who have to live without their father. There's a young mother who has to live without her husband. And I hear stories from people who have spoken, and I do feel guilty, and that's a difficult thing. But as I continue to live and try to find meaning in that and what the purpose is, I find meaning in my living in making sure that his life was not taken in vain. So I share that. I thank you all for listening, and I hope that you realize it can happen to anyone, right? Because I didn't think it could happen to me, but it can. And so I hope that someone gets something from it, whether that's closure or just a second thought in a moment that you probably wouldn't otherwise. So thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please take a look at those surveys. Please make sure that you fill out the surveys and don't forget to put them in the box as you leave later on today. Coming up next, we're going to have the moderator for our panel. Please come to the stage, Ariana. Oh, Makia Turner. From Channel 9. Give it up for Makia Turner from Channel 9. Hey, Makia. What's up?
How's everyone doing this afternoon? Well, it's morning. It's still morning, right? All right, first and foremost, I just want to take a moment to thank the State's Attorney's Office for inviting me out today and to thank all of you for showing up to really take something from this event. I know we've been trying to push the information out the last few weeks, so this is just beautiful to see all of you here and to hear the testimonies from Wanda and other people who've come forward. This campaign, it affects all of us, and we know it's about saving lives. Not just protecting ourselves and our loved ones, but the people throughout our community. I've been doing this now. I'm a journalist, reporter, and weekend morning anchor for WSA 9. I've been doing this now for about 8 years, and I have seen so much during that time, from the bodies to the mangled vehicles to having to be that person to sometimes knock on that door and hear from a loved one about the person behind that story. And there's just nothing more gut-wrenching than having to do that sometimes. So, you know, when you hear about these crashes, it's not just about what happened there. There's people behind these incidents. There's stories. Driving impaired or distracted, whether it's your cell phone, a sandwich, a deep conversation, or even a pet in your lap. How many of you have seen that behind the wheel? I'm just always stunned when I see that. Can have real consequences. And the scary part about it, as you've seen and heard today, is that it only takes a split second to either take someone's life or even your own. The team was really shocked when Miss Braveboy came on the show a couple weeks ago, and she told us that just within the last 6 months, there's been more than 40 crashes and more than 50 people who've lost their lives, including a lot of children. It's just devastating. So I do hope today that you all will take what you've learned here and just spread the message throughout the community. So before we get started with this panel discussion, I do want to turn your attention to the screens. We're going to have another PSA for you.
Operate, pilot, steer, control. No worries, everything will be all right. We're 5 minutes away. Critical. Beware. Open your eyes. Can't you see? Unexpected, unanticipated, unannounced, unforeseen. All in the blink of an eye. Lives changed forever. Caution. Pause. Driver distraction is responsible for more than 58% of teen crashes alone. More than half of road traffic deaths occur among adults between the ages of 18 and 44. In the last 6 months, there have been over 40 fatal crashes and 50 deaths. The cause? Distracted driving. Beware. Be aware. Your life is worth much more than a phone call, a drink, a text. Drive focused, sober,